without delaying things further, I guess I'll just start our discussion. And first and foremost, of course, I would like to know that where in this entire EMS system that India has progressed, where do you think is that inflection point that we amass a size that we can then look at not just import substitution, but also export? Can you just give a little more broader perspective to us?
So I think you have raised a very pertinent question. As far as the inflection point is concerned, I think we are almost there.
Okay.
We are almost there. Almost is underlined. Evolving global geopolitical situation, very apt policy framework of the government of India. And the Indian industry itself acquiring a certain mass and level of maturity in deliverables. Large global EMSs setting up the industrial footprint in India. And Apple being the flag bearer.
Exactly.
These are all very significant indicators and that we are almost there. But when we reach this kind of a stage, extremely critical element is the deliverables. Please appreciate that the supply chains in China and in Far East are very deeply entrenched. And there would always be a lot of inertia for shaking those supply chains up. So undoubtedly, there is a firm conviction, and that is already happening, that the electronic goods being sold in India would be manufactured in India. And now there are 2-3 more paths that the industry has to pursue. One is the deepening of manufacturing and creating more value addition. Exactly. The indigenization across the complete back-end chain. Maybe. Is that what it means? That's right. So creation of a component, just like it happened in auto. Correct. The second is the Indian companies owning the IP. If not in all products, but the Indian EMSs, at least in certain categories where we have the capability and bandwidth, should migrate to more own design solutions. And third, to follow, which is extremely critical for generating the scale, the mass, and the operating leverages, acquiring the capability for servicing the global markets. So what does that actually mean? That means you start exporting, you service the global markets. Now, stage one has already happened. The electronic goods, which till 5-6 years back, which were sold in India, which were largely imported in the CBO form, today are being manufactured in India. Obviously, for any industry, and so is the case with our industry, that there is a government support required for the industry in its stages of infancy. And that's what the government has done by raising the tariffs to an appropriate level, bringing in some non-tariff conditions, and also certain schemes like PLI or specs or semiconductor policy. Correct. I think some kind of framework has also been set up for pursuing and setting up the component ecosystem. In our industry, it is split into two. One is the semiconductor side, for which the government has a semiconductor policy. And we have had some success with Micron committing an investment and Applied Materials also coming in. But that's a very difficult domain. It's not easy because the whole world is aspiring for it and subsidizing it. Equally critical, if not more, is the non-semiconductor part. wherein we are talking about mechanicals, wherein we are talking about precision components, wherein we are talking about camera modules, audio modules, motors, PCBAs. Now, that itself is a very large portion
Exactly.
of the material. So that is what is required to be done. Once that happens, then the industry will reach a very different level. The third is owning the IP, wherein Dixon will start designing products, which we are aspiring to do, and we have met with reasonable level of success in some of our businesses. And fourth is industry and Dixon becoming globally competitive. So that's the path.
True. So I know you laid out the roadmap, but if you can also give, say we take one by one, this industry parameters, and which is where, so what percentage of India's electronic requirement now is made within India? So on the first layer itself that we are addressing, not the indigenization part, how much have we achieved in terms of broader industry size and the percentage conversion to some of you all?
So in the domains that Dixon is, we are in 9 businesses.
Correct.
Televisions, practically 95% are all made in India. Lighting products, 90-95% are made in India. Washing machines, 90-95% are made in India. Refrigerators, 90% are made in India. Mobile phones, 90-95% are made in India. IT products, yes, it's minuscule. I think almost 70% of notebooks, tablets, all-in-ones, PCs are imported. Air conditioners, practically everything is made in India. CCTVs, yeah, practically everything is made in India. So I'm very sure about the 9 businesses that we are in. The country has achieved that kind of skill set. Yeah.
Correct. So as I see the balance sheets, I see that the asset turnovers are 7x, 8x, or even 10x. And the value addition is about between, as such, EBITDA is 4, but if I take even gross margins are in the range of 8 to 10%, which means that we have achieved the first surface of just first, making it here or putting up the lines. But the real margin, I'm sure, would be in the components and indigenization of that. So that part, as you were also explaining yourself, which is mechanicals, camera modules and PCMs and etc., will it be in the purview of manufacturers like Dixon in some global partnership, or that will be a completely ancillary industry which will develop on its own now that we have achieved a size?
Yeah, so responding to your question, I would like to do it in 2 steps. Looking at, let's say, Dixon's balance sheet itself, we have certain businesses which are purely EMS and prescriptive.
Which are purely
EMS and prescriptive.
Huh.
Mobile phone business,
yeah,
security surveillance systems business. Now, these are the businesses on the financial matrix side. You're right. The gross margins are in the range of 8 to 10%, and the EBITDA is in the range of around 3.5 to 4.5%.
Mm-hmm.
But in this business, also look at the balance sheet. The asset turns are 1:15.
I swear, I know.
The return on capital employed in these businesses for me 50-60%.
Absolutely.
So this is the biggest money spinner. And
precisely,
the business is completely de-risked because there's no inventory risk. There is no currency risk. You're just sweating the assets. And it's a beautiful business, and one would like to keep on expanding.
I completely agree with you.
And there are other businesses wherein we have migrated from purely prescriptive EMS to owning our IP, namely our washing machine business, or lighting business, or a refrigerator business which is about to start. Now, in this, if you see, the gross margins are in the range of around 19 to 20%. and the EBITDA margins are close to double digit. So that's the path we're going to pursue. And when we're looking at participation in the component ecosystem, yes, we'll keep on investing. On the non-semiconductor side, we have already acquired a skill set in polymer processing, in metal components, in coil winding, possibly at some stage in modules, camera modules, vibration motors, display assemblies. These are the things we are going to keep on looking at. So it's going to be a mix of both in-house and ancillary.
So the nature of this component manufacturing, as you go into that, I'm very sure that you have a reasonably good critical mass, both as a company and we as India. What will be the nature of business model in terms of asset turn, or in terms of margin, and in terms of return on invested capital?
So again, these are going to be two different domains. One domain is going to be for captive consumption. When I'm saying captive consumption,
for
example, let's say I make televisions. So all the mechanicals I would like to do in-house. The backlight units I would like to do in-house. The sheet metal components I would like to do in-house. Like let's say a washing machine that we produce, practically every component is produced in-house, but that's for captive consumption. But there also on the financial metric side, the gross blocks are not very high.
Okay.
So it justifies, and I don't compromise on my ROCs. It is margin accretive. And on the technical side, an adequate bandwidth has been acquired to execute this project. Then comes the project in this domain, which requires a larger capex. It has a larger gross block, which cannot be only for captive consumptions because you require the scale to justify that investment. And also, to be very candid, one does not have the in-house capabilities to do those projects in-house. It requires a different set of technology.
Correct.
So
Technology.
That's where we are pursuing and studying in detail. And hopefully we're going to announce something in a couple of quarters, wherein is going to be servicing the industry. Are you getting my point? It's not going to be confined
Absolutely.
only to
some collaboration which can give you the technology and you can service the whole industry along with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in Dixon, we always try to pursue that wherever there is a growth and it's aligned with the technical capabilities, either in-house or acquired, and over a period of time, we can acquire a scale without seriously impacting on my balance sheet, without over leveraging, because today the balance sheet allows me to raise resources and I'm able to maintain an ROC of 30% plus. We will pursue it.
So this is what the progression of a Dixon or a Dixon-like business is likely to be, and that is also the progression of India. Indigenization, the whole chain, component manufacturing. You also mentioned about this, IP, and you said that part of your business is already IP-led even now. So how does that work? That you create your design, which the manufacturer approves, and then that's why the margin outlook is different? What do you really mean by that?
So let me give you an example. Let's say lighting. When the industry migrated from analog to digital, that is CFL and GLS to LED lighting solutions, our anchor customers, they did not allow us to use our own designs. We were purely working on customers' design and even the customer source sheet for critical components. And that time, my operating margin in my lighting business was around 4%. But today, almost 95% of our revenues in lighting are Dixon solutions, even to the biggest of brands. And the margin profile is improved to almost 8.5–9%. Let's say washing machines. 100% of washing machines, whether we sell to the biggest of the brands like Samsung or Bosch or Panasonic, they're all designed by Dixon. And the margins are close to almost 10%. In televisions, what we did for Samsung, or what we did for Xiaomi, or what we did for Panasonic was largely their designs. What we were offering was manufacturing services. Now, what we do for Samsung, and we do almost 60-70% of the requirement, is a JDM design. So we've been able to create value for them. We have been able to offer them better cost structures, and it has been margin accretive for us. And now we have acquired, and we are the only design house in India to have acquired Google and Android licenses, and also Samsung's Tizen operating software, where the solutions are being rolled out. So these are Dixon homegrown solutions up to 55 inches. Similarly, the refrigerator project that we have rolled out, almost 1.2 million for DC refrigerators, right from 170 to 230 liters. All the products have been designed by Dixon's R&D. What we are planning to do in set-top boxes over a period of time is going to be Dixon's IP. Similarly, that's what we want to pursue in our other telecom devices. So it's not easy. Let's see in other products whether we are able to achieve that, but that's the path we try to pursue.
Fantastic. I totally appreciate. Just to also understand, we recently saw one more industry which India wants to be completely indigenized, which is laptops. So how well geared up we are for this, and how is it going to really pan out?
So the government has announced a migration of this particular product category of 8471 IT products into licensing, which is triggering the inquiries for domestic manufacturing. And second, also, the government has launched ITPLI 2, wherein they are subsidizing and supporting the industry through local manufacturing of laptops, tablets, all-in-ones. Yeah. So we are also participant in this scheme. And in this particular scheme, it's also linked to the value addition year on year, that what all you can localize. So I think it's again going to move in the same trajectory. Initially, the first level assembly, including the PCBA, is going to happen. Second, more and more localization is going to happen. Namely, you're going to have power adapters localized, you're going to have the casings localized. At some time, you might have a display localized, the camera modules localized, the SSD localized. So the value addition will keep on enhancing. That's what the government plan, and that's what the industry is also gearing up. As far as the IP is concerned, I don't think, at least for next 2-3 years, the India-designed notebooks are going to be rolled out. I don't think so.
Correct. It takes time to absorb.
Also, see, if you map our engineering talent, let's say in a mobile or in a laptop, you're fine on the software side, but you don't understand RF, you don't understand camera, you don't have those technologists. So that's going to take time. But manufacturing will definitely happen there. That I'm confident about.
Which means that 6 months from now, 12 months from now, when I buy a Dell laptop, it will be manufactured in India. Is that what we are?
Definitely. So we are already doing it for Acer. And we have been awarded a very large contract by one of the top 3 global brands, for which the engineering teams are gearing up for the lines. And hopefully next 5 to 6 months for this large global brand, the notebooks are going to be made in Dixon factory.
So once they test that, even if we make it in India and not any other competing countries where they must be making or assembling currently, do you think that they will feel that there is a cost competitiveness here, because of which then they will feel, okay, for if nothing Bangladesh market you make, some other markets you make, then they will say for Europe you make. What is that advantage that we might have in manufacturing this?
You see, any product for that matter, and all the more the hardware products, if you see the balance sheets, even the biggest of the global brands, the the margins are always under pressure, even for the biggest of global brands. So ultimately, is the business case which is going to make a difference. I think it's going to move in stages. First, they're going to see that, let's say, EMS companies like Dixon or anybody else, what they're committing on cost and quality and other deliverables, are they really doing it on the ground? Once they acquire that confidence, then they're going to load you more for the domestic consumption. Because please appreciate that almost $8-9 billion worth of IT products are being imported. So that itself is a large opportunity for having that kind of a mass.
Correct.
I think that is going to take time. And once the EMS companies and the local manufacturers are able to generate this confidence, then one can look at it.
Sure, but my question still comes from the fact that any category, that some of the categories, not say laptop, but other categories where India is almost at 90% of what India is consuming on these EMS companies. So what are the cost differentials which, say at the material level, component level, transport level, electricity level, labor level, which level that India is either competitive or not competitive for the global things to happen?
So I think in some of the businesses like lighting, we have almost reached there.
Okay.
Okay. In mobiles, with the PLI subsidy covering up for certain disabilities in India, India is comparative. Now, in our case, we're going to have an export revenue of almost $300 million this year. And this is on mobile export and exporting to the matured markets like North America, like US. So I think in mobile phones also it's happening. And that's the reason you're seeing the big brands like Apple, Samsung using Indian industrial footprint to service the global economy. So at least in these two, I can see. Others, one has to wait and watch.
Sure. Absolutely. I would just take up a few questions on Dixon itself and how the domestic market growth trends are visible. I think first quarter was muted. How are you seeing things shaping up now? And are you seeing that disturbed monsoon or anything impacting demand?
So we are all waiting for a good festive period. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Again, to be very candid, I don't see that kind of buoyancy on the demand side. Specifically on Dixon's case, you see our growth can also happen through new customer acquisitions and new verticals. So we are confident that our growth is going to be much ahead of the industry growth. So in the first quarter, we grew by 14%. I feel we should be able to do better.
Okay, agreed. Now, new customer acquisition, yes, but industry growth continues to probably look a bit muted still.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't see the kind of buoyancy that we would have wished for.
Agreed. Just to also take up one question on the balance sheet, how the nature of balance sheet, according to you, over 3 years can pan out, and will the capex need or any technology acquisition need will change the structure of the balance sheet, you think? Or are there any guiding principles you will follow while expanding?
So we are extremely conservative fiscally. Please appreciate since 2017 when we got listed, we have revenues have grown from 1,700 crores to 12,000 crores last year.
Absolutely.
And the profitability has grown by almost 6x. And we have not raised any more equity. And we are practically at zero debt situation. And we generate ROC of around 30%. So that's the path we're going to pursue. We feel that we can do it. But at the same time, we are never going to miss an opportunity. And the balance sheet is adequate strength to raise debt or equity. So if a large project comes which is a good fit into our strategy, then we're going to jump in.
So in last 6 years, you almost grew top line at 8x.
That's right.
Okay. So in next 6 to 10 years, as the opportunity size becomes from India to global, do we expect next 6 years
I don't want
8 to 10x again?
I don't want to put a number to it. I don't think it will be.
Yeah, but generally.
But yeah, it's going to be very aggressive. Please be rest assured on that. It's going to be very, very aggressive. Yeah.
No, because sometimes what happened, managing a scale, that itself puts a constraint. That's why I asked that maybe 1,700 to 12,000. But if I make 12,000 a 10x, it becomes 1,20,000 crore kind of a size. And below that will be so much of labor, etc., production quality. So that is a manageable size. Do you visualize that?
So, Amisha, we are always hungry for growth. And as the opportunity keeps on coming to us, we will never give it a slip. Whether we will be able to execute it well or not, that's a different question. But am I going to give it a slip or a miss? And that I'm having a limited bandwidth? No. We'll strive to acquire that bandwidth. Because that's the way the company's DNA is, what to do.
Correct. So frankly, you've given us very limited time, and I need to open the floor for questions from my colleagues as well as from all the participants. And after that, I may come back if the time permits. But this was an excellent...
Fine. If you want, we can carry on till 5. I'm fine. Okay.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. But still, since Ram, anybody, you want to take up any questions or anyone wants to take up questions? Then I'll come back again. I'm here only.
So I've requested the participants to post the question in the chat box. In the meanwhile, I have 1 or 2 questions to start with. So sir, I just wanted to, understand on a broader perspective, how does commodity prices and, the volatility in those component prices, impacts us in terms of margins as well as working capital for us.
So Ram, as I was explaining earlier, that we have 2 revenue streams. One revenue stream is purely EMS, which is prescriptive manufacturing, and which is a large part of our business. So in that, there is no impact of commodity pricing. There's no impact of currency. It's an automatic pass through. The other revenue stream of ours is the ODM one, what I was referring to: lighting, televisions, washing machines. Now, these are the business where the commodity prices can impact. Now, we have contracts with our customers, wherein that any variation in the commodity pricing, either plus or minus, has to be passed on to the customer. But there is a time lag. So if you recall, in the last fiscal, we suffered because the commodity and the logistics costs had really ballooned. And it took us a couple of quarters to pass it on to the customers. Correct. So in the medium term, we're fine. But in short term, on the ODM side of business, there can be an impact.
Okay. So there is a question, and which is always the question: what kind of new products you will look to expand in your EMS as well as your ODM space?
So if you see in Dixon's case, in last 8 to 10 years, we were only a television manufacturers. We added lighting, we added washing machine, we added mobile phones, we added set-top boxes, we added CCTVs, we have added refrigerators, we have added telecom devices, we have added air conditioning components, we have added wearables. So we keep on doing it. So please be rest assured there are many things being evaluated at this stage. It will not be prudent for me to discuss the specifics there. Anything in which there is electronics, in which there is a touch of semiconductors, there is a touch of silicon, passives, voltage management, thermals, optics. On the balance sheet side, there is a growth opportunity. There is deepening of manufacturing opportunity. There can be a multiple customer situation to de-risk the business. At some point of time, there can be a possibility of backward integration. There can be a possibility of export. If these boxes are kind of getting ticked, then we look at it very seriously.
So, sir, do you have any specific number in mind that 5 years down the line, out of my turnover, this much should be at least the exports part of the business?
No, I don't want to hold myself back. I presume that at present, for next 3 to 4 years, a very large portion is going to be domestic. But then the trajectory will be there for global market. You see, all the large brands are first going to see our execution capabilities for servicing the domestic market. You can talk, but these are very deep players. They have huge systems to evaluate your performance. They have to be convinced about what you're committing and what you're delivering. Only that level of confidence, when it's there, they'll start loading you with some global requirements. And then obviously there has to be a business case, which Amisha was mentioning, that you have to have automation levels, the productivity levels, the rejection levels, the first time pass yield levels, the digitization initiative, learning and development of the people, ramp ups from, we have grown from 1,500 people to 25,000. Can you have a single campus of 25,000? And can you manage it well? Now, these are all questions which we have to execute on the ground to convince our potential customers. Only then the global markets will come in. It will happen, I'm very sure, but it's going to take some time.
So, sir, you answered one part of the question which was already there, which I was taking forward. Another question, which is again relating to exports and our competitiveness, is coming from some law. Our labor laws, overtime restrictions in India are constrained for rapid scaling for electronics manufacturing, and he just wants our view, a bird's eye view on labor cost versus labor productivity for India versus China versus Vietnam, and does that impact our cost and competitiveness in the export markets?
Exactly.
So are labor laws going to be restrictive for the growth? In our case, we have taken a plunge. And I don't think about labor laws to hold myself back, to be honest. But is everything absolutely perfect? No. So we have to work within the contours of the laws. And there are challenges. But then I think the labor situation in India is quite mild. And the government, both at the state level and the central level, are supportive of itself. Overtime, yes, they allow you 60 hours of working. They allow the ladies working in the night shift. And they allow those kind of ramp ups. So till the time you're complying with all the laws, I think that growth can happen. And I think, in fact, in that sense, the Indian companies are at an advantage because we are able to appreciate the local sensibilities much more. I mean, just to give you an example, I know मेरे तिरुपति के प्लांट में सांभर कैसी बननी है as compared to a global company. I know that I have to allow my lady workers for doing the rangoli on Pongal. So we are at a certain advantage. We appreciate those sensibilities.
And in terms of cost competitiveness, sir, Vietnam versus India on the labor cost side?
We are at present at a wage level of almost $170, $180. Vietnam is at $280 to $300. China, certain provinces are around $800 and other provinces are around $1,000 to $1,100. Productivity, I think there'll be some differential, but we are confident that productivity and UPPH, we can be very close to Vietnam. The bigger challenge, so it's not going to be labor and labor productivity. The bigger challenge is going to be automation. For example, on my surface mount lines, I'm at present 62%, China is at 93%. So I have to really push for that. On my FATP and CFC lines, I'm at somewhere around 52%, China is at 73%. So that is the ground to be covered, and it has to be covered very fast.
But your replies, sorry to interrupt, but your replies are showing me that a global benchmarking is the way you all are moving on, and you're tracking it very closely to come closer to the global benchmarking.
Yeah, please appreciate that, as I said in my opening remarks, that any industry to grow needs support from the government in its stages of infancy. So PLI, specs, semiconductor policy is that kind of support to
Correct.
cover up on disability. But the government has reiterated again and again that it's not going to be an everlasting support. So in that remaining period of 3 to 4 years, we have to achieve global levels. If we don't do it, then we can't run our businesses.
So one component, of course, is a labor cost, but labor cost in absolute doesn't make a difference, but more to do with the productivity. Also, equally important, would it be a power cost or the logistic cost? In order, what are the areas where we really need to be globally benchmarked?
So it is a mix of everything in the whole value chain. Of course, it's labor cost, it's productivity, it's power cost, but I find power cost to be comparable to what's there in China. Labor cost is
Okay.
much ahead. Productivity, we are lower, but that's what we have to keep bridging through learning and development and automation. As far as logistics is concerned, in our case, we have two footprints. One is in north and the other one is in south in Tirupati, which is close to Chennai campus. So we are able to cover for the logistics costs for our global markets and also for the domestic markets. Yeah, yeah. So we are almost there, I think. Interest cost, yeah, there is a gap. But then interest cost on the global markets is on so far basis. So one is able to cover it up.
So globally, any time that you decide to export, will it be through SEZs or from the same campuses?
It's going to be from the same campus.
Okay.
Because SEZ means that you're fragmenting the capacities, which doesn't work.
Ram, you can start taking up.
So one of the participants has asked the question, will backward integration imply more capex intensity going forward, especially in mobiles and laptops? You answered part of it that you don't want ATOs to go up, but will this be more capital intensive?
So the capexes that are going to be made for captive consumption are not going to be very capital intensive. We will be able to manage our return ratios. We will be able to manage our debt levels almost to the level at which we are today, which is practically very, very small. We will be able to generate cash in the system even after making those capexes. So that is one part of capexes. However, at the same time, I would repeat what I said earlier, that if a large opportunity is coming, right, wherein large resource is required, then we won't miss it.
Got it. Absolutely hear you well.
So another question is very specific. What are the expected timelines for our new refrigerator factory which you have announced?
So the trials for all the machines are on. The machine installation is over. What my team assures me is that within a couple of weeks, the trial of final product is going to be on. So I think, and then we have to submit samples because these are complex things. And the customer and the brand owners, they take their own time for approvals. And also we need BIS certifications. But next quarter, definitely the commercial production is going to start.
And this would be largely ODM.
It's completely ODM.
It's completely ODM. Okay. So another question is again regarding Samsung ecosystem moving from China to Vietnam. It's a generic question, what do companies and government need to make sure that we do not miss this bus again on Samsung moving for Vietnam and moving, and even Apple or HP doesn't move to Vietnam in terms of other component systems.
So I think just like we were talking about the deliverables being executed as per the commitments by the entrepreneurs and industry, the government also has to deliver on the commitment it's making. Seamless disbursement of PLI cash, seamless disbursement of subsidies under specs. From the state government level, whatever they are committing on land allocation, on local clearances, on supporting on the labor ramp up, Now, these are single window clearances. These are essentials because in India we have had many accidents. And only when all this becomes seamless, the global industry is going to have that confidence. Yes, we can do it. So it's going to be, they have to keep trying and testing. And only when they're absolutely convinced, they can move en masse. So deliverables both by the industry and the government to make it happen.
Okay.
Once again, I'm interrupting a bit. I had done a very detailed call when the PLI was launched. I'd done with Ember's promoters that time, but I know that how really government went about creating the PLI, how precisely they followed up with the industry, and how granularly that they went about it. And sometime back also, of course, I was checking up and that the payments are coming in time. But is that vigilance in terms of government's complete locking in with the industry in terms of understanding? So the policy and the industry moves completely hand in hand. Is that still the scenario?
So undoubtedly, the whole government process has gone through a very massive transformation for the positive. I am in this industry since 1986, right? So it's 37 years.
Correct.
When India signed that hugely important ITA-1 agreement, nobody in the industry was talked to, and which led to complete collapse of the industry. When we signed the Indo-Thailand FTA or Indo-ASEAN FTA, there was no deliberation discussion at all. It came out of the blue. And industry also did not realize that what's happening. But the designing of the PLI schemes, what Jasbir would have told you, for air conditioning components, for lighting components, for IT PLI 2, there's a huge granular level discussion.
Exactly.
And the bureaucracy is so positive. I'm just coming from a meeting with the ministry. There is a glint in the eye, when you walk out, you feel so positive.
Precisely. So that environment still continues. I'm sure together you all will bridge the gaps as what you were just mentioning, that as a nation, whatever opportunities are there, we are at it.
Yeah, वो तो करना ही है ना.
Correct.
But one of the questions is, do we need a semiconductor fab facility for moving ahead, big time ahead in the CMS space? How critical is having an own semiconductor fab facility for us?
No, not for us.
For
it
the
requires
country,
different technology, it requires different bandwidth, it requires a different size of balance sheet. So in Dixon's case, as of now, we're not pursuing anything on the semiconductor side.
And for an industry as a whole in terms of overall ecosystem?
So I think it's important. Let's see how successful is AMD, how successful is Tata's project in OSAT, how successful is Micron. But from our side, as I explained to you earlier, more important is the non-semiconductor side. You see, camera modules for phones should be made here. All the mechanicals, and they're very complex mechanicals. Those precision components are made here. Vibration motors are made here. The chargers are made here. The battery packs are made here. Certain PCBs, flexible PCBs are made here. Certain wound components are made here. Those are the things which are even more critical and more doable.
So, sir, so we are going through a turmoil in terms of India-China relationships, and that's one of the questions which is there in the chat box. Has that actually affected our sourcing of our components or for the industry, our component ecosystem?
No. So there is no impact on sourcing of components. That's seamless. There is no impact at all on that. However, there is a press note 3 waiver requirement for technical collaborations or financial collaborations. There, the approvals are not coming through. So ideally, I think the setting of the component ecosystem, at least on the non-semiconductor side, a lot of it is linked to China. So if the government is more liberal in press note 3 waivers on the non-semiconductor side of JVs, I think the Indian industry is going to boom. All the more because China is going through a slowdown, and those guys are really keen to invest and give you the technology. So that's a bit of a challenge. But buying the components from China, no, not an issue at all.
Okay. So another question is, are you looking to get into OSAT business as well? What are your thoughts on this?
No, we are not looking at OSAT.
Okay. I think there is another question is again on that labor productivity. So one question is where the South, this is again and largely a macro question. When we assess labor availability across India, we said there are labor surplus states like UP that don't have the required governance for enabling large scale manufacturing, while the other states have better business environment but are labor deficit. Do we need policies for large scale worker migration, worker housing?
So that's already there. Let's say in our plants in Noida, today we have almost 20,000 people. All of them are not necessarily only from UP. We have people from MP, we have people from Odisha, we have people from Rajasthan, from Bihar. So that migration always happens. Similarly, in our Tirupati campus, not all the people are from within Andhra. We have people from other states. So I don't think that's required under an official guise. It'll automatically happen.
Yes, sir. A very interesting question again from one of the FMs. Sharing of capex by government seems to be too good to be true on Excel sheets. Are we missing something, or is this the new norm? And would it lead to overcommitments by players?
Could you just repeat the question?
Sharing of capex, on setting up the plants by government seems to be too good to be true on Excel sheets. Are we missing something, or is this the new norm? And would it lead to overcommitment by players? So this would be, government subsidizing 40% of the capex for cost for a semiconductor facility, or those kind of capex where government is committing on the capex itself. Is it too good to be true, or and would this lead to overcommitment by the industry players?
So let's get slightly into more details in this. From the central government side, there are two schemes for capital subsidy. One is for the semiconductors, in which the government is saying that 50% of the capex is going to be funded by the central government, which is what Micron project is all about. And there is a cabinet approval of $10 billion of allocation, 80,000 crores. So I have absolutely no doubt that government will not or will go back on that funding. Those funds have been allocated in the budgetary exercise, and the government is very, very keen. So yeah, I'm very sure that is not. And please appreciate that if you're bringing in a company like Micron with various alternate sites, just like Amisha was mentioning, Vietnam and others, government will not go back on this. Please be rest assured. We're very confident. The second scheme on the central government is the specs, which is for various component industries, and the capital subsidy there is 25%. I don't think from the central government side, there'll be any dilution of disbursement of these schemes. I don't think so. The various state governments are also committing capital subsidy. In that, there can be challenges because the fiscal state of the state governments are not as healthy, very many of them. They tend to overcome it. So my sense is that the state government subsidies, at least in Dixon's case, I don't include it in my project plans. If I get it, it's a bonus. But central government subsidies, yes, we do.
Okay. I think, ma'am, we've exhausted the questions. So from at least the participant side, if you have any further questions.
So I would still focus on a couple of size and scale related issues. You have demonstrated a 6x, 8x growth. There's no doubt about it. A further 6x, 8x growth what kind of challenges in managing that growth, apart from capital and orders, you think you will have to overcome? And what are you really doing for that?
So multiple challenges. A talent acquisition.
Correct.
Talent not confined to domestic talent, global talent, right? Along with that, huge digitization initiative.
Why digitization initiative, meaning in terms of overseeing the costs and so many functions?
Let's say I have multiple sites and need the best of the manufacturing execution systems. I need the best of supply chain softwares. I need the best of workers management systems. I need the best of ERPs, right? And you need people to manage that.
Correct.
Third, on the softer side, and Dixon has been more like a family, right? So many of us have been together since ages. So that sense of ownership is there. As you grow, you need to put in some processes in place, which is fine. But that nimbleness and sense of ownership should not be compromised.
Correct.
Which happens in various large organizations. So one needs to ensure that there's a balance in that. Then we are a labor-intensive industry. When you grow from 2,000 to 50,000 people, they're learning and development. They're ramp-up exercises, right? And managing the nuances of running those large companies. Then we aspire to be an IP-owned company in various verticals. To set up R&Ds, please appreciate that the R&D boys or girls, they have a very different DNA. In a manufacturing organization, there are systems, processes, some kind of regimentation. Here you have to bring in a mix of people who are free thinkers.
Creatives.
Right? You have to roll out the correct ESOP schemes because you have to ensure that as you go down this path, your people needs to feel wealthy. Wealth creation has to be a part of them. So these are not simple challenges. They're huge.
Absolutely. So my second part of the question was, how are you trying to really overcome that? So for each of these, which I was, while I was talking to you, visualizing in my mind, that there are, even if given an order, there are many challenges to match up to the growth which is there in front of you all. What are some of the things that you all are doing which is really helping you cope with this?
So we are working on all of them, just to share with you the specifics. So first one was a talent acquisition. So let's say in lighting, we brought in a new CEO, who was the CEO of Philips Lighting, Nirupa. For heading our operations of lighting, we brought in a director of manufacturing of Philips, Amit. For heading our Amit Mittal for lighting.
Right?
From Philips.
Okay.
For R&D, we got
so with core domain knowledge.
Yeah.
And for people who have seen scale.
For heading our mobile business, we brought in the president of Samsung Manufacturing. For heading our telecom devices business, we brought in Sukhwinder, who was the president of Tejas Networks. For what else? Yeah. For our HR, we brought in a new CHRO, who was the CHRO of CIAT. For our IT, we brought in number 2 of Mahindra, Amit Pradhan. So a lot of talent acquisition at the senior level and the mid-management level is happening. We brought in the R&D head of LG for washing machines. We brought in the director logistics for our logistics and distribution business, KK Call. So a lot of talent acquisition happening. On the digitization side, we have the latest.
I'm intervening, but I must say that you are so hands-on. You remember every name and from where they are coming. That gives a lot of confidence.
Very company hai, so.
But you have to be hands-on to really know that totally.
So let's say on the digitization side, we are on the latest of SAPs. And we invested heavily on MES. We have partnered with Siemens. We have partnered with Longchair on our MES. We are rolling out Blue Yonder, which is globally the best supply chain software. For our HR systems, we have launched Darwin. So this is on digitization front. We have brought in a learning and development head who was with Cipla, This lady is rolling out our centers of excellence in every campus. So a lot of these works are happening, but I feel we could have done much better. We need much more intensity there.
Correct. A lot more passion to manage this growth. But I was thinking that, we've been always hearing Tesla puts up a factory in 1/4 the time that anybody could have visualized. And I'm sure so globally who have managed these scales, there would be plant operations heads or somebody. So none of those names I heard that you picked up somebody from, say, Taiwan or from any European factories or anywhere that they have managed the scale in this part of the world also.
No, so if you, let's say Kamlesh Mishra, who was the director of manufacturing of Samsung, and please appreciate, Samsung mobile plant is the second largest plant of there in the world after Vietnam, having a capacity of almost 6 million phones a month. So he looks after our mobile operations. Recently, we have hired Hang Su. So Hang Su was a director of operations for Wistron Taiwan. He comes in as a consultant on board on 1st of November for consulting for setting up and ramping up of all our factories, the global system. So yeah, we have added operating out of Korea. So we are doing all that. We're trying to do all that.
Precisely.
I wish that I could have done much more, but these things take their own time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it had been an absolutely amazing interaction. And I must tell you, I know 95 people are hearing, but first time that I was looking at both of Dixon and Amber, and any clients which I was interacting with, they kept on saying very low margin. I said, here margin doesn't matter. You better focus on the return on capital employed because it's a fast asset turn. And I'm sure over the next 5 years, as we see the growth, there will be a journey where the deepening will happen, whereby while you will be protecting the return on capital employed, the margins will also start looking interesting and value addition component will keep increasing. So I wish you very best.
So thank you so much
us to enter. Yeah, and allow us to enter into your mind and see the way you are seeing things. This was short but very powerful interaction.
Thank you so much for hosting me and giving me an opportunity to share our thoughts and what we are pursuing in Dixon. And I would like to assure all the stakeholders that this is the path we're pursuing. And we've always been very candid and transparent in what we are pursuing. There might be errors or aberrations here and there, but this is the path we're pursuing, and we'll keep on pursuing with a lot of tenacity. Okay?
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure interacting with you.
Thank you, Amisha. Thank you, Ram. And thanks to all the other participants who are there on this webinar. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
So much.
Thank you. Bye.